Welcome to the Arc Junkies Podcast. My name is Jason Becker, and I'm your host. The mission of the show is to help, educate, and inspire the next generation of welders. Join me each week as I take you on a journey through the world of welding. With over 25 years of experience as a welder and fabricator, I bring my expertise to the table each week as I interview guests from all facets of the welding industry. From pipe welding to structural, underwater welding, and everything in between, we cover it all. Whether you're a student, a hobbyist, instructor, or a seasoned pro, this show's for anyone who's passionate about welding. What is up, Arc Junkies? Welcome to show number 269. First of all, I've got to apologize for not posting an episode last week. I've been slammed both at work and within my personal life. I recently took a week-long trip with my son for a field trip to Washington, D.C., which was a great time. I've been doing some more welding consultations with some local companies. I finally got around to taking some time off for myself and took a trip to Georgia with my buddy to sight in a new scope of mine and to do a little bit of hunting. But now I am back and I shouldn't miss any more episodes. I also did the Ink the Bay event over this weekend, and I had a chance to sit down and do an episode with Dabs Wellington and Anthony James, aka Melton Metal Mobile, on Instagram. Those episodes are going to be coming out in the next couple of weeks. I also did a video component of those episodes, and they should be available on YouTube as well. I'm also planning on doing some more YouTube videos for, future guests and in-person episodes, so be sure to subscribe to the Arc Junkies YouTube channel. In this week's episode, I'm chatting with Martha Bennett, Global Vice President of Marketing Excellence for 3M, and Cedric Smith, a welder out of Minnesota. 3M recently put out a documentary entitled Skilled that was released at the Sundance Film Festival, which highlights different industries in the skilled trades to bring awareness and information to the next generation. As most of you know, there's a huge shortage of people across all industries of blue-collar trades. 3M is doing their part to get more people involved in the different industries. We're going to get right into the episode after a quick word from our supporters. Today's episode of the Arc Junkies Podcast is brought to you by Outlaw Leather. Outlaw Leather is the perfect place for all your handcrafted leather needs. Their gear embodies the spirit of American craftsmanship, offering products that blend style, durability, and exceptional quality. Their skilled leather workers create custom welding hoods, tool bags, bolt bags, scabbards, rod pouches, armbands, and accessories designed for both function and flair, so you can shine on the job site. Using only the highest quality materials, Outlaw Leather guarantees that your gear is built to withstand even the most demanding conditions. Plus, with their personalized customization options, you can own a one-of-a-kind piece that truly showcases your individuality. Ready to experience Outlaw Leather for yourself? Head on over to outlawleather.com and browse their amazing selection. And for listeners of the Arc Junkies Podcast, you can use promo code ARCJunkies at checkout and score 15% off all in-stock leather goods. Discover the premium handcrafted leather goods that Outlaw Leather has to offer. Visit outlawleather.com and remember to use Arc Junkies for your exclusive discount. We're also brought to you by Rockmount Welding, the innovators in maintenance welding. If you do any sort of arc gouging, you got to check out their game-changing Electra AAA gouging rod. The Electra AAA is designed to set the standard in the world of gouging, offering unmatched efficiency, precision, and ease of use. And the best part is, you don't need any fancy equipment like an air compressor or a gouging torch. All you need is a welding machine and a traditional stinger and workpiece clamp. You heard that correctly. The Electra AAA rod ensures cleaner, faster, and cooler gouging operations, saving you time and money on steel, stainless, cast irons, and cast steels. Whether you're working in construction, maintenance, or repair, the Electra AAA gouging rod is engineered to handle the toughest applications with ease while minimizing distortion and reducing cleanup. This is the ultimate solution for welders who demand superior performance and reliability. Experience the difference of Rockmount Welding's Electra AAA gouging rod for yourself. Visit rockmountwelding.com and browse their impressive selection of welding products. And as a special offer for listeners of the Arc Junkies Podcast, you can use Arc Junkies 10 at checkout and get 10% off Rockmount's burrs, bits, blades, and abrasives. Get the job done right the first time, every time with Rockmount. We're also brought to you by CK Worldwide, the standard in TIG welding. Are you looking to step up your TIG game? Look no further than CK Worldwide, the industry leader in innovative and reliable TIG welding solutions. With more patents on product design and improvements than anyone else, CK sets the standard for TIG welding equipment. Whether you're a professional welder or a welding hobbyist, their exclusive innovations like gas saver kits, MaxFlow water cooling technology, and wedge collets make your TIG welding process smoother and more efficient than ever before. And now they're excited to announce the launch of their new MT375 from CK Worldwide, a powerful 375 amp AC/DC welder with a dual pump water cooler, cart, torch package, and more. The new welding machine is packaged with a newly patented 2-in-1 steady grip foot pedal that incorporates fingertip control into a foot pedal for a variety of different applications. Don't settle for subpar equipment. Choose CK Worldwide to experience quality and performance. With a reputation built on decades of experience and dedication to innovation, CK Worldwide is the only choice for top-of-the-line TIG welding equipment. Visit ckworldwide.com today and use the Find Your Dealer tab to locate the closest dealer nearest you. CK Worldwide, the standard in TIG welding. All right, you know what time it is. Fire up your machine, drop your hood, and turn me up 5.
You're listening to the ARC Junkies Podcast, helping you make every weld better than your last with each episode. And now your host, Jason Becker.
All right, so Martha, Cedric, thank you guys so much for coming to the show. Martha, first I want to tell you how big of a fan I am of 3M. You guys make the best products on the market for anything. So adhesives, abrasives, the PPE, the welding hood. I recently got a 3M Speed Glass last year, the G502. It is premium, probably one of the best welding hoods I've ever used my entire life.
Awesome.
Yeah, everything that you guys make is fantastic. So thank you. I was surprised when y'all reached out to me and were like, hey, we want to talk about this new documentary film that we got, called Skilled. And I was like, wait, why is 3M reaching out to me of all people? Like, you guys make phenomenal products. So first of all, thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, absolutely. We're so happy to be here with you. And we're really proud of all the products and really appreciate your great endorsement. So thank you for that.
Oh, sure thing.
Yeah, and it may seem like an odd connection, but 3M is an enormous global company. We've got 4 major business groups that span across the transportation and electrical markets, our safety and industrial, our healthcare organization, and our consumer. So you're right. Like, think about the breadth of that portfolio. I'm the vice president of marketing for our safety and industrial group. And of course, that's a lot of our heritage portfolios, things like sandpaper, like tapes, like welding, bonding, all kinds of things that it takes to really get work done. And a lot of our customers are manufacturers who are building things, making things. And we're on a mission to transform how work gets done in our customers' environments, in industry across not just the US, but globally. And so, skilled trades is critical for us, not just for us as a manufacturer, because 3M is a manufacturer of product, but our customers in safety and industrial, they're making all kinds of stuff. And so, we want to make sure that they have the very best talent, the very best tradespeople that they can. And we know that's a huge problem today in the US and other parts of the world. So.
Oh yeah, it's massive, and for the longest time I thought it was just isolated to the U.S. until I went up to World Skills and talked to some folks up at Cleveland, Ohio for Lincoln Electric. I went to the World Skills welding competition, and I was sitting next to a man from Germany on the bus ride over to the event, and he said they were having the exact same problem over there in Europe.
Yep,
I said, man,
absolutely.
I thought it was just isolated here to the U.S., but apparently it's a global issue.
It is absolutely a global issue. And, 3M's got a good relationship with both World Skills as well as Skills USA. And that's it. Like, that's the reason we partner with organizations like that, because we know this shortage is a critical issue for our customer base. We hear that all of the time. Like, what are the things that keep you up at night? They're like, I can't get enough labor, right? Like, supply chain issues, everything else. I need the right labor, and I need to make sure I've got them when I need them, the highest quality talent, people that are really gonna help the craft. And a lot of these industries are crafts, frankly.
Yeah. And it's a shame to kind of see it kind of go by the wayside. Everybody wants to get more into technology or go to, to get a degree or, something to that nature. That was the way that I was brought up. Go work with your brain, not your hands. Don't be a welder. Don't be a plumber. Don't be an electrician. Don't be a trash handler or anything, Don't do any of that stuff. Go to college, get a degree, and get a really good job. And
that's it.
I went down that path. I drank the Kool-Aid. I took the pill, and I went and got my degree. And I realized that's not going to make me happy. So I figured out how to I got back into welding, and I was making enough money doing that. And I figured out a way to make money doing something that I love versus sitting in a cubicle all day and just beating my head against a keyboard, because I know that that's not me. I need to very similar. Cedric's probably right on the same page there. You got to put your hands on something. That's how I learned.
Yeah,
I've got to get these 10 little digits on something, and then I got it.
For sure.
Absolutely.
A lot of the time, man, with following through certain weld blueprints or certain builds, man, I feel like just seeing that progress is like self-gratification, just that I'm producing, it makes me feel productive. So
yeah,
I definitely right along that track with you.
That's the coolest thing is when you can grab a set of prints, because there's so many people out there that don't understand how to like read a blueprint. But when you can look at a set of blueprints in a 2-dimensional form and just start looking at it and go page by page and just picture this object in your head and just spin it 360 in real time. Now they got computers that'll do it for you. But the cool thing is like being able to do that as a human being, to be able to take that 2D image and just think about it and rotate it in your mind and then start thinking about, how am I going to build this? The sequence of operations. What am I going to cut first? Where am I going to, what welds am I going to make first that I don't cause heat distortion, or I don't block myself later on in the progress to be able to have access to a weld? These are the things you have to think about. It's what keeps me up at night and what's put me, it puts me to bed sometimes.
Yeah, I've definitely blocked myself a couple of times and ran into that error. So I can relate.
Yeah. Now, so Martha, why did 3M decide to come out with this movie entitled Skilled?
Yeah. Well, let me back up a little bit, because you touched on a really important issue that we're tapped into as well. And that's really this whole generational issue of people that were encouraged to go and get a 4-year degree, and they were told that was the path to go. And then, they came out with those degrees being a dime a dozen and a couple $100,000 in debt, right? Frankly.
I'm guilty.
And so we're finally seeing this resurgence where the trades are on a comeback, and that's really critical. So 3M got involved in this for a couple of reasons. One is Skilled. The docuseries was inspired by an annual survey that we do called the State of Science Index. And you can look up the report. You can look up our findings. We've been doing it for a couple of years now. But it's an annual global research study that finds out, what do people think about science and what's on their minds about science. And this past year, we dug into skilled trades specifically to understand people's perceptions and why were they attracted to it, or why weren't they going into it. And it was interesting because 9 in 10 people believe that they would pursue a career in skilled trades, but they're worried about the perception of it. And that was really interesting to us, because we're like, okay, what's with this stigma, and why is this stigma still kind of hanging over? And so we are really committed and engaged to removing that stigma and really making sure that skilled trades stand up as the amazing opportunity that it is. And so Skilled, the docuseries, was really an opportunity to tell stories of real life people like Cedric. Cedric is a star in our Skilled docuseries. He's one of 4 talent that we profiled and talked about. So we had one on welding. We talked about the plumbing trades as really critical. Yep. Paige the plumber. We had the fall protection, the work that Andrea Martin was doing in Canada, and she's known as the fall girl. And and then a story from Mexico where they talked about like the film industry and the gaffing that's done there. And again, a really interesting sort of international spin on skilled trades and an all women business where, this was very traditionally where you would only really see men in that industry. So Skilled is a really wonderful way of telling these real life stories of people who have stepped out into the trades, have made an amazing career out of it, and really are becoming the inspiration to so many more in the next generation that's coming up.
Yeah, I think it's great because there's a lot of negative stereotypes that surround skilled trades, not just welding. Like when people think of welding, they think dark, dirty, and dangerous. When they think of, like the people that come by and pick up the recycling in the trash, they're like, oh, like, they're dirty, they stink, like all that stuff. And they don't think that there's money in this industry, in these skilled trades. But I know a lot of welders and a lot of blue-collar tradespeople that are making 6 figures a year. But the difference between them and a lot of people that are in white-collar are they enjoy getting out of bed every morning. They can't wait. It's like, I can't wait to put my work boots on, pour my coffee, and jump in the rig and go out there and get it. And like, I've got a buddy that he's a welder, and he recently went out and purchased a Porsche. And so he told me the story about this. He's like, I went to the dealership, and like, I don't want to, because I'm eventually going to have him back on the show. But he was telling me, I was like, man, what was that situation like? I mean, did they laugh you out of the dealership? And he's like, no, this guy was super cool because he's had other blue collar people come in and you walk in, he doesn't judge you on like the clothes you're wearing, because as welders, a lot of our clothes we get burn holes in them, and we got dirt and mud and stuff all over us. But he went in there, did a test drive and everything, and he says, okay, I'll be back in like 2 days to pick up the car. And this guy's had that same thing happen to him several times. So he doesn't look down on tradespeople. He sees them as, a customer, just like somebody walking in a 3-piece suit. But we've got to change that negative stereotype. Go ahead, Cedric.
I really think it's important just for like the cross training that we get in the skilled trades. Like, a lot of people get confused that like, if you're a welder, then you have to weld your whole life. There's a lot of opportunities to progress into other fields, such as like CNC and other like heavy machinery, just from having the skill set of the skilled trades. As far as like, for me, welding, I'm looking into like some HVAC stuff recently, just one to expand my knowledge base. But a lot of people in HVAC, or even just understanding those kind of systems, helps you with like welding as well. So a lot of people think that like, once you learn a certain skilled trade, that you're kind of stuck there. And yeah, I think that's one of the biggest like misconceptions of the whole thing.
Yeah. And being part of the skilled trade network, you get to meet a lot of other people from other trades. So you get to meet the HVAC technicians, you get to meet plumbers, you get to meet electricians, you get to meet all these people, and that's what I called upon my network. I built this whole studio in my backyard, and like, I don't know anything about drywall. I've seen a couple videos, I've seen it done on the job site, but when it came down to it, I called up a buddy. I was like, hey man, you want to come out here and help me do some drywall? Sure thing. Same thing with the electrical. Like, I try not to mess with electrical. I dabble a little bit, but I can't hook up a panel all by myself, but I ran all the cables, but I knew somebody to call. And, if something breaks down in my house, if I don't know how to fix it, I can call somebody up, and usually I can tell whether they're trying to like rake me over the coals or they're giving me a good deal. So it helps, in a lot of different aspects of life, being familiar with the trades, the tools, how things actually, operate.
For sure.
No, that's awesome. And so why, Martha, going back to it, what was the purpose of 3M creating this entire documentary? Because it's really well done. And I guess it was aired at the Sundance Film Festival and got some accolades over there.
Yes, absolutely. And really the reason we did it was we wanted to spark conversation around skilled trades in a really authentic way by featuring real life stories like Cedric's, frankly. And so, if you or your listeners get a chance to go and watch it, you will see that. Like, it is a very personal kind of look behind the scenes of what motivated these people to go into these skilled trades. What was it like? What is a day in the life like for them? How much they love their job, and, how has it really contributed to their life in a really meaningful way? And so by doing the docuseries about that, we're really trying to strike those conversations and bring that into the mainstream, really thinking and discussions that people are having. And this isn't the first time we've done that. We also debuted another docuseries last year called Not the Science Type, which was a very similar angle of profiling people that you wouldn't necessarily think of as scientists. And so really we're trying to break stereotypes, frankly. And we're trying to challenge this perception that we talked about, why do skilled trades get a bad rap? We want to challenge that. We want people to understand this is a really viable and in many ways lucrative and exciting career path that people should be looking at. Like, parents should be talking to their kids about this. This should be profiled the same way as, people applying to different colleges. There should be the same celebration when they get into the tech school of their choice, right? And so we're really working to partner with different organizations in the community to help promote that. And, we can talk a little later about how we're bringing that to life. But that's really the reason for the docuseries, is getting people to have the right conversations about skilled trades and to break the stereotypes.
Yeah, that's one of the things we did at the school that I was working at. We did a signing day. So when the students graduated, they had employers come in and like sign the contract. Like, the employers offered them a job. The students agreed to it. They did the weld test and everything prior to that. But like right around graduation time, they came in and we did a signing day, very similar to what they do in the NFL. It was like a big, a big to-do event. And all these employers came in and put the contracts in front of the people, and, they signed it, and they started work, right after graduation. They graduated on like a Thursday, and, first day of work was on Monday, orientation, 7 a.m.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And actually, it's funny you mentioned that because one of our key community partners, so NC3, which stands for the National Coalition of Certification Centers, they again are a huge advocate of skilled trades and technical education. And they're one of our community partners, and they have a national signing day. It's going to be April 6th this year. And it's actually across the country where they do exactly what you're talking about is, students that from high school, they're applying to their tech colleges, they're celebrating that, right? And they're broadcasting that across the country, and they're inviting the parents and friends to come in and have that same fanfare that somebody would get if they got into their preferred college, right? We want to celebrate them getting into their tech schools as well and really follow their journey. And eventually, as you say, like, get them into signing for employment too. Like that's exactly the journey. Yeah, so I love that you did that.
It's a great way to pitch it too, because a lot of the schools, like I can speak only for welding, but a lot of the welding schools, they have wait lists. So, I mean, for you to get the chance, the opportunity to apply at that school and get accepted, that's kind of a big deal, versus somebody else that's on the wait list. So that should be celebrated. Like you got your college pick, like you're going to Harvard, but you're going to like the Harvard for welding.
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
the way that it should be. And there's, there's such a demand for welders right now. I know the American Welding Society has a bunch of stats, and I think it's around like 386,000 welders that we're going to be short over the next, couple of years. I would have to pull the website up because I'm just not good with numbers. But I also heard that the U.S. Navy, they are 100,000 welders short right now because they're trying to build 3 submarines per year for the next 10 years. Jeez. So I went in to do some weld testing the other day at the school that I previously taught at, and the instructor had this, not a presentation, but like a commercial up on the board. And I was like, man, like the U.S. Navy can't even get enough people.
Wow.
That's actually amazing. Like not amazing in a good way, but that blows me away.
Yeah. And our national defense right there. I know there's a company out there called Project MFG. And they've done like a YouTube video series, it's like a competition between welding and machining. I've participated in some of the smaller scale events with my buddy Ryan Eubank and Kyle Linko. They come out and do welding education training for welding instructors to skill the instructors up so that they're, meeting the needs of the students that, that way they're training up for industry. And Project MFG, it's the same thing. Their end goal is to you enter this welding competition, but at the end of the day, instead of like, getting a welding machine or a cash prize or a bunch of, tuition or, this, that, and the other thing, you actually get a job because the U.S. government is out there recruiting for, American citizens because that, in order to work on a government contract, you have to be an American citizen and you have to have the skill set to be able to do that. So they're, pitching this thing as a welding competition. It's like the big game of welding, but the prize is employment. So, I mean,
the prize that keeps on giving.
Exactly. Right. So you're making a good amount of money. The government's got great benefits. I should have stayed in the military, but I mean, they've got an awesome retirement package. I mean, why not? As a young person coming out of college, why not get into the skilled trades and, go work for the Department of Defense?
No kidding. That's perfect. I love that.
Yes, that is amazing.
Yeah. And there's just so much you can do with this industry and this trade.
I think even having the knowledge that government opportunities and stuff like that are potentially available to people. Like there are people that I encounter every day with me being kind of younger and dealing with people kind of younger than myself. I'm 26. I think just people not knowing how far you can take the skilled trades is a real important part for people to be educated on as well. Because government contracts are a big part of making our country successful and, being able to continue to do what we do here.
Exactly. And the great thing about welding is it can be a stepping stone. You don't have to be a welder your entire life. I branched off into the world of inspection. I got into education. There's just so much you can do with welding. If you don't like welding, you get into it. I mean, you might be able to get into technical sales. You might be able to get into repair and maintenance. You might be able to get into the safety aspect of it or procedure development. I mean, it's just like a big tree with so many branches and different roots that you can go all over the place with it. I met a lot of welders that, they want to get into weld engineering. That's another field that there's not enough people going into. And I know there's all kinds of grants and scholarships through the AWS. If you want to become a welder, there's a grant you can apply for. If you want to become a welding engineer, there's a grant you can apply for. And I mean,
Yep.
it's there. And then I think 3M also has grants available as well, right?
We do through some of our community partners. NC3 that I just mentioned, they're probably one of our biggest ones because of the national reach that they have. So we have a series of scholarships, 50 scholarships that are offered through NC3, and then we have various tech schools around mostly Minnesota and a little bit in Texas. Because that's where we've got some of our manufacturing locations where we're also offering scholarships. And again, we really want to encourage students to look at this as a viable option and, an alternative to a 4-year degree. We think it's a really great way to go.
Yeah. Now, Cedric, what was it that caused you to get into welding?
From my personal experience, I had a little bit of a tumultuous adolescence, and I ended up in prison actually at the age of 19. And in prison, I was in a Stillwater prison for a while, and they had us welding a bunch of different like small things from like door handle fixtures and stuff like that, just like repair welding. And at that point in my life, I was really confused on which way I could go with like having a felony on my background and just like really confused on what potentially where I could take my life. And I was just introduced to welding there. And I actually got a book from the prison library about welding. I learned that welders could become also engineers. And that was just like the spark for me. I know engineering, as mentioned in the Skilled documentary, I have a grandfather who's like a Swiss Army knife, man. He worked at International Trucking out in Melrose Park, Illinois for about 42 years officially, but he's still like a part of their company as far as like going in and talking to the guys and stuff like that. So I knew kind of like what I was made of as far as like, bringing your hard hat to work. And, I had witnessed that as a kid. So I just kind of dove into welding really initially in prison. And then upon coming home, I went to tech school. And from there, everything else has been a journey.
No, that's really cool. So, I mean, so your grandfather was kind of an inspiration for you getting into welding.
Yeah, for sure. He was a mechanical engineer, amongst other titles that he held, but officially that's what he was at International Trucking. So just like seeing him do little stuff around the house that, normal people we used to call couldn't do. Yeah, just, being able to use his hands and fix things, man. And then I've always been inspired since I was a kid, just as far as like building things, whether that's like Legos or, just fixtures, building something with my hands or even like fixing cars. For a while, I wanted to be a mechanic as like a 15, 16-year-old. I just enjoy putting something together and watching it run.
Yeah.
But yeah, welding was a career that I seen that I could progress in and like actually, kind of graduate levels. Like I didn't have to be at one pay or like specifically do one role my whole life. So that really intrigued me because a lot of people in my family, they kind of got into the same job and worked there 30 years, even if they hated it. And I think that was a big thing for me to like get into something that I could grow in. And yeah, welding's definitely it for me.
Yeah, life is too short to wake up every day and go to work and do something that you hate for 30 years just to make ends meet. There's just so many opportunities out there that are available now. And
and then the only example of a person like that in my own personal experience was my grandfather. So
yeah, I mean, he was doing something he loved.
For sure.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, and I'm glad to hear that the prison system, that you were in had that as an option. I've got a buddy out in California, Michael Monsivais, and he runs a program called No More Locked Doors. And he set up an accredited testing facility inside the penitentiary so that when inmates, when they're about 6 months from the release date, they can go in there and start learning a trade. And then by the time they're done, he's been released since. But now that once they learn that skill, they get certified while they're in there. They get them hired right when they get out. So very similar to going to a tech school. You graduate on a Thursday, Friday, you're at work on Monday. They're getting released, 1 week, and then like the following Monday, they're at work. They're on the job site, and they're getting skilled up the entire time. Because a lot of it's union work. So they're going through, they're learning additional skills, but I mean they've got something to build on because they've done that welding portion. So that now they can learn, the rigging, the structural, the safety, like all that different, everything that's, a part of it, because welding, there's just so much involved in welding. So they're learning that. And then I've got another friend up in Philly, Patrice Frazier. That's what she's wanting to do is small classes with, people that are incarcerated. And I just had a conversation, the last episode that we released, my buddy Max Ron with the Canadian Welding Bureau podcast and Kevin Johnson with the Welding Business Owners podcast, we did like this big cross-pod collaboration. And Max raised the question, would you hire a felon that could weld? And across the board, because Kevin owns a business, I've owned businesses, I've taught, welders that have been incarcerated previously. Would you hire a welder that's been incarcerated? And across the board, we were like, yes, definitely. 100%. Yep. Because they understand, like, this is a second chance at life. I don't have to continue to go down this road. I've got a skill set now that is valuable and it's needed. And, I can build a life and a foundation upon this skill set that I learned while I was incarcerated.
Yeah. And I think a big part of that is just guys knowing the way. I know a lot of guys who just really are at a crossroads and don't know what the other path kind of holds as far as like a real career and working in the skilled trades and stuff like that. So I think educating guys incarcerated on stuff like that is kind of fundamental, just to not only bring recidivism and stuff like that down, but also producing back citizens that are productive in our society. Yeah. Because that's the goal, right?
Exactly. I mean, that was the goal originally. And then like the prison system became like a private institution. You got all these private companies that are funding it, and they make money off how many inmates are in there. So what better to do to increase your bottom line is to bring in more people. And that's not that's not what prison was originally designed for. Like, bring people in there, let them serve their time, but teach them a skill so that when they're released back out into society, they have something to offer society.
Exactly.
That's the way it should be. I know we have the school that I was previously working at, they have a construction program, and they fought to get inside the prison system, and that's what they were doing. They go in there and teach them basic construction skills so that when they got out, they could get a job framing or working on a road crew or something, and that launches them into, okay, you're on the road crew. This guy's here every day, or this lady's here every day. They're putting in all the work. They're doing everything they need to. Hey, the roller operator's not out. Not at work today. Maybe we can put them on the roller. Okay, well then you graduate from the roller to the excavator, and then you go from there to the bulldozer or finish grade operator. Same thing with welding. Okay, you're in there sweeping the floor and grinding. Okay, well you're here every day. You're showing up. You're doing everything you're supposed to. Let's take you over here and we'll show you how to run a couple beads, and you just start building that foundation. All these skill sets, it's attitude makes, attitude determines your latitude, so the more you're putting in, the more you're going to get back out.
For sure.
I love that.
I think that's really cool that you had that option while you're in.
Yep. It was a blessing for me, for sure, for my family. It definitely changed my life.
Yeah, it has that effect. Welding's weird, man. Like, we're all connected at some primal level. It's just, it's got that effect. You start developing a passion for it. I've never met a welder that didn't like welding.
To be honest, me either.
Yeah, you won't find one. I mean, there's a couple people out there that know how to weld, and they kind of do it for a living, but they don't want to take that next step. They've got the wrong attitude. But, if you got the right attitude, you get that passion and thirst for education and learning and taking that next step and advancing. I mean, the sky's the limit. I mean, you can own your own business. You could, if you don't want to be an entrepreneur, you can stay at a company. You can work your way up into a supervisory level. Or if you're happy just, welding on the same part and component, you can be that cog in the wheel every day. But you're damn proud of what you're making every single day. Whatever's rolling out the line, that it's 100% correct. And you put your name on that. And you become proud of it.
For sure.
Now, Martha, tell me a little bit more about the skilled documentary. I know we keep jumping back and forth.
Yeah.
It was a really I really enjoyed the documentary. I sat back and, I put it up on I just beamed it from my phone right to the TV, and I watched the whole thing. But it focuses on a lot of non-traditional people entering the skilled industry.
Yes. Yep. And we were pretty intentional about that, because when we looked at some of the data too, like, not only do we have a shortage in skilled trades, but when we looked at some of the underrepresented community and women in particular, people of color, they under-index even more. And so we wanted to dig in and understand, well, why is that? And, again, using the docuseries as a way to spark conversation and spark inspiration That's why you see some of the stories that you do, like Paige the plumber, right? You know, a young 21-year-old plumber. You don't see that very often, and you know, she's doing some really cool stuff in her outreach and going in and talking to classrooms and kids, and you know, showing young girls like this is a viable career for you. You can think about this, like you can actually pursue this, and don't be scared of it, right? And she goes in and runs a whole course on, you know, basic plumbing and, you know, basic construction and helping them get comfortable using tools. And again, like I would have loved that when I was a teenager. Oh my gosh, that would have been, maybe I wouldn't have ended up where I am, right? Like maybe I would have done a totally different career. So, so these stories are pretty cool and pretty inspirational. Same with Andrea in the fall protection. You know, when she shows up on a job site and starts going in to train, you know, people in construction around how to protect, like the first thing they say is, "Oh, you're a woman, you know, or you're a girl, you're a chick." He's like, well, you know what she actually says. So she kind of coined herself the fall girl. Like she goes in and again, breaks stereotypes and really, you know, causes people to sort of look twice and understand that, yeah, you can do this. You can absolutely do this career. So it's pretty cool and pretty exciting. So I'm really glad you got a chance to watch it.
Yeah, I actually, that was the thing. Like I was waiting for Cedric's part because like I'm all about welding. I thought Paige's story was really cool because, like you said, I mean, she was young. I think she got into it when she was in high school. Yep. And she's like, you know, I show up to, and, you know, I knock on somebody's door and they're like, "Who are you?" "I'm the plumber." "Are you serious?" "Yeah, I'm here to, you know, fix what you can't," essentially. Yes. And the fact that, you know, she holds like these little, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just seconding that, just laughing at Paige. That's definitely her attitude. Can do it for sure.
Yeah. And the fact that she's like holding summer camps, you know, to kind of give people, you know, like a little taste of what plumbing actually is, or like get into it and give them a little bit more knowledge and say, yeah, you can do this. Because I mean, she's like 100 pounds, maybe, you know, with full kit on. She's tiny, you know, so, but we also have a tiny welder in the welding industry. You know, I mean, like we need everybody to get into this industry because you don't have to be big and burly because we got this really cool stuff called hydraulics. You know, so you do, or, you know, a 2 or 3 person lift, you know, so you can move stuff around. You don't have to be a big burly iron worker to get this stuff done.
Yeah.
And I thought,
sometimes, frankly, being maybe more petite, you can be more finessed in what you're doing. Like when you talk about welding or some of these things as a craft or an art, right? Like that also kind of changes people's perspective about that.
Yeah.
And, you know, and you know, it's kind of cool. Like when you watch Paige's story, and I don't know if you guys found this too, you know, in your careers pursuing welding, but, you know, she talked a lot about being in high school and being at that crossroads of like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do next? And, you know, her parents sort of pushing her one way, and all of her friends at school were all kind of going down the more conventional path. And when she made this decision, she said it was really hard. Like she said, she got a lot of people kind of raised eyebrows and like, why would you do that? And even, you know, she describes in the documentary, she even got a little bit isolated and maybe shunned a little bit from it. And, you know, what I love about her story so much was that, you know, how she sort of pushed through that and really stayed true to what she cared about and what was important to her. And again, if you see her, you know, in the story, and Cedric and I had the pleasure of getting to meet her in person. Oh man, like this is a young woman who knows who she is and is loving life, like loving her career, loving what she's doing. And like, I can't wait to see where she goes with this because, you know, she's so young and so accomplished already in what she's doing.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break. This segment of the Arc Junkies podcast is brought to you by Workbench Pros. Are you in the market for a welding or fabrication table? Or maybe you just need some fixturing tools and clamps for your current table? Head on over to workbenchpros.com and check out their full selection of tables, tools, fixturing equipment, rotators, and accessories to help you decrease time on fabrication and increase your accuracy. And the best part is, you can order directly from their website without having to go through a distributor. That's workbenchpros.com. We're also brought to you by Everlast Welders. I get this question all the time. Hey man, I'm a welder and I need a machine for the house, but I'm on a budget. What do you recommend? My answer is Everlast Welders. Why? Because with a wide range of innovative products like MIG, TIG, and stick welders, plasma cutters, and multi-process units, Everlast is committed to delivering outstanding performance for professionals and hobbyists alike at a fraction of the price compared to other power source manufacturers. Check them out today at everlastwelders.com and be sure to use Arc Junkies in the comment section at checkout to get that free Nova foot pedal and TIG torch upgrade when you buy any machine that comes with a stock foot pedal. Everlast Welders. Weld mean, weld green. Now let's get back to the show. I had a lot of students when I was educating, they would bring their parents in and they're like, hey, you know, this is something that I want to do. And you'd have like the mom or the dad that's like, yeah, you know, he thinks he wants to do this, but, we want to push him towards this way. And, because you really can't make any money doing this. And after I'd give them the tour, they were like, yeah, okay, where do we sign up? Like, I had no idea you could do all of this with welding, because I'd get in deep with it. And they're like, you need welders. Everything you touched is welded.
It's so true. We have, as part of our program around promoting skilled trades, we have a lot of high school kids come into 3M and come into our labs, and we can demonstrate welding, or we can demonstrate, abrasives, or, grinding and buffing and whatever else. And it was kind of cool because we had one of our application engineers, who's a woman who works for our automotive aftermarket division. And she again told that story of like, I think she was in maybe graphic arts originally. But she told her parents, like, I don't want to go into the conventional. I actually want to go into like auto body, and I want to leverage my graphic arts into the auto body industry. And again, her parents like tried to talk her out of it, and like, why do you want to do this? And meanwhile, like, that's how she started. She started in the auto body, and kind of what you described. She probably worked at a small shop. She probably did like all the general jobs, worked her way up. And, eventually she ended up competing in World Skills. And she ended up coming in second in World Skills, like in her class, wow, in her sector, right? Again, the first woman who ever made it that far. And then now she's working at 3M as an application engineer, training and teaching in this area. So kind of to your point earlier, skilled trades is so cool because you could start with your trade or your craft, but it can take you into all those different branches you were talking about. It doesn't sort of, just have the one dimension. You can take it into so many different areas. Yeah. And that was kind of her story, which is kind of cool too.
And that's kind of the direction that I promote now. When I talk to kids or, parents and stuff, is like, let them come in and learn a skilled trade. And now they're making enough money to where if they want to go back to college, they can pay for it out of pocket versus incurring $60,000, $80,000, $100,000 in debt. And maybe the 4 or 5 years that they're in welding or, whatever skilled trade that they're in, they'll have a good idea. Because at 18, you don't know what you want to be when you grow up. Heck, I'm 40 years old. I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. But that, working in the skilled trades, that's going to give you some time to say, this isn't for me. I need to get into something else. Or this is for me, but I want to take it to, the next level. Now you don't have to take out that loan. You don't have to take out student debt. In a lot of welding programs, they're accredited, so you can earn 20, 24 credits towards, a degree. So you can walk into school and be like, hey, I've already got all these credits from welding school. I'd like to apply those to an associate's degree in industrial management and supervision, or, whatever the case may be, or welding engineering. Like, hey, I've already got the welding stuff covered. Like, let's go ahead and jump into grain structure. And just, there's just so many paths you can go with it.
Absolutely. And I think, awareness is half of the challenge, right? Like these high school kids, just like you were saying, Cedric, right? Some of the people you knew, like they just are not aware that this is a viable path. And so, the skilled documentaries was part of like showcasing that, getting the conversation started, the partnerships that we have with some of the high schools and the tech colleges and our community partners is part of like, how do we raise that awareness? Mm-hmm. How do we get this out there? I love that you're doing the podcast on this, Jason. Like, how do we get it out there in conversation so that people understand, like this is a really, really good alternative. And in some cases, not even an alternative, like this is the path you should be going. This is going to lead to, a great income, a great career, a job you love, a passion you can pursue. Like that's just sort of, checking all the boxes. And I wonder for our generation, Jason, like how many of us, had we had more awareness and had people laid that out as options for us, how many people would have gone that path, right? Yep. Like we were that generation that got pushed into 4-year degrees. And I like you said, I see so many people that one, it maybe didn't pan out for them the way they thought. And two, if it did, a lot of people are not happy. So
yeah, skilled trades when I was growing up, it was kind of shunned. So I went to a vocational school as, I could do some of my elective credits over at the vocational school and learn welding or small gas automotive or culinary or, they offered a bunch of different things, but everybody looked at it as, oh, that's where the dumb kids go to, to earn their elective credits. And no, that's not where the dumb kids go. There's a lot of smart kids in that class.
Absolutely.
The difference is they're applying all the math and the science and everything that you're learning over here at the main campus. They're applying that daily. So they're developing a deeper fundamental understanding of why these different gases do what they can do, or, how these angles actually work. You want to talk trig? Let's go build something.
Yes, exactly. And frankly, like you think about that now too. And, again, in our business group in 3M, like we're really interested in how is work evolving? Like how are we transforming how work gets done? And you think about like how we're stepping into like this world of robotics and this world of automation. Like it's evolving, right? And again, like how does welding play into that? How does abrasives play into that? How does bonding play into that? And so there's this whole new sort of sphere that's opening up that's around the automation, the robotics, like the technician, like taking it into a further step even into like taking your craft and your trade and bringing that into like the next generation of how do we look at that in more of a, kind of, I guess I would say like an automated or a more streamlined way of doing things. And that, again, to your point, like you're learning that stuff real time. Like you're not going to necessarily go to school and learn about that. Like you're going to be on a factory floor immersed in that and understanding like how is the technology evolving and how is the workflow and the processes evolving. And then how do you apply your craft to that? So that's the other piece I think is kind of cool, is that it's not like your grandfather's trade, right? Like it's constantly evolving. It's constantly changing with how industry is changing. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah. That's what I like about what Cedric said. You can get into welding and you can learn CNC or you can learn automation. It's going to springboard you into something else. Now, Cedric, with, you coming into the industry, is that something that you're interested in, is getting into automation or any of that stuff that's kind of coming down the pike pretty soon?
I mean, I'm kind of on the borderline with automation. It's really cool to me, but like for myself, I can't see like real time how it goes together. But yeah, I mean, I want to grow any way I can in welding right now. I'm kind of like knocking out my small goals, like being a team lead for where I work right now and stuff like that. So I haven't even really thought that far as like school. I really want to learn some core flux soon. Got to brush up on that, but yeah. Yeah,
there's which process did you learn first?
Stick.
Okay.
Yeah, super
That's
messy.
The fun
I
one.
love it still to this day, but I think my favorite process is MIG though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love MIGing. I actually MIG all day, so I'm enjoying it. My job previous to this one, we were also doing like Thermo Fisher parts and tanks, incubator tanks, stuff like that. So a lot of TIG. But yeah, I think TIG is a little bit more artsy, in my opinion. So I enjoy the dirtiness of MIG.
Yeah, that's my favorite process to this day is stick welding. I mean, I don't know why. I don't know why. It's a lot of finesse, and I think it's because a lot of people can't do it well. And like I can, because I've put in a lot of time doing stick welding. Because a lot of times it was the only option we had to use. It was like, you're using the stick welder. Okay, I'm going to get good at this so I don't hate it anymore. And I got to the point where I fell in love with it. I'm like, you start getting that slag peel and you instant gratification. You're like, oh man, there we go. I nailed it.
Yeah.
Make the same thing, get out there and, doing some flux core, like, whether it's self-shielded or gas shielded. Like I love running flux core too. And a lot of people don't like doing that. They're like, it's too dirty. And it's like, well, if you do it right, the slag just pops off itself. You really don't have to do a whole lot of work after that.
Yeah. I definitely, I think for welding, man, it's like basketball almost to me. I always use like the sports analogy just because like growing up in high school, I played a lot of athletics as far as like track and basketball and stuff like that. It's like at first, people were kind of making fun of me as far as like school and my first jobs and stuff like that. But for sure, man. Now, once you learn like little techniques as far as even like how you hold your torch, stuff like that's really important. And you don't learn those things unless you put in like the hours.
Yeah. So you've got to have a lot of hood time. That's what I tell people all the time. Burn all the rod and wire that you can get away with while you're in school.
For sure. Learn how to fix all the screw ups that you can.
Yep. Yeah. You're going to learn way more from your mistakes. You put down a bad weld or something. You're going to be like, oh, man, what did I do? How did that happen? How do I avoid that? Because, it's worse than, screwing something up is having to fix it, especially when you welded it together, because now you have to take a grinder and you got to grind it back out, or you take carbon arc cutter, which nobody wants to play with that thing. But you screw up bad enough, like you got to bust out the carbon arc cutter. And you got to open it back up. So you get really good real quick. And I tell people all the time, the grinder made me the welder that I am today. I got tired of cutting out bad welds. So I was like, man, if I just learn how to do this right, I could spend a lot less time on the grinder and a lot more time under my hood.
Yeah.
I love that, Jason. Oh my gosh. And it's funny because I remember, Cedric, I think in some of the earlier conversations we had when you were doing Cedric's done a lot of video vignettes for our students, which are really cool because they're like, in addition to the film, he's done these sort of shorts where he talks about why he got into welding and stuff. And Cedric, one of the things I love that you said that maybe you can tell Jason about is like how welding is almost meditative for you. Like you get into the zone and you get into the flow. And I love that.
Like when my day-to-day, like when I first get to work and I hook up or whatever, it's like, Jason, from welding, any type of welding, you kind of need that steadiness of hand. And I like when I first get to work, no matter what, I could feel calm, but like I don't have that steadiness that I'm looking for. And throughout the day, man, it's almost like Martha mentioned, just like meditative for me. Like I find that I settle into a mode, and then like before I know it, it's time to go. And I'm like, oh crap. I really enjoy the peace that it brings. It's almost like creating something from nothing and like being responsible for the process. So yeah, it's really meditative for me.
Yeah, welding becomes like a very therapeutic process.
For sure.
You put your hood down and it's just like between you and that puddle. Where are you going to move it? How are you going to move it? And you put the hood down, everything else goes away. Nothing else matters. Sure. It's just, how is this weld going to look? How am I going to get this in there? How am I going to burn it in right? Got settings dialed in, you just super focused. And then eventually it becomes muscle memory. So then when you flip your hood down, you're just like, you just lay it in there and you're like, yeah, that's going to be a good weld. You flip your hood up and you're like, yep, that's what I thought. And you're on to the next one. And it puts you into a different mentality.
Also makes you a little bit more hungry for like that more difficult stuff. That's one thing that I'm really intrigued by with welding too, because there's always going to be something more difficult.
Oh yeah, because it becomes a challenge, and then once you overcome that obstacle, you're like, okay, I've got this. I'm really good at that. I can do that with my eyes closed. What's next? It might be a different welding process altogether. It might be thinner material, or it might be a different alloy, and then you tackle that and kind of not master it, because I hate the term master welder, because I don't think anybody's ever mastered welding, because
for sure.
There's just so much to it. I say it all that I'm going to just put it on a t-shirt. The more I learn about welding, the more I realize I don't know anything about welding, just because it's such a vast, deep process. It's kind of like an iceberg. You see that much sticking out of the water, but you don't see the other 200 feet below. And you just start diving a little bit deeper, and just kind of broaden your horizons. There's so much to it. And I think that's why I've stuck around with welding as long as I have, because there's always a different challenge. Every time I think I got something, completed and I've mastered that subject, it's like, oh yeah, here's a different alloy. Try that one. Oh, and then you get humbled real quick.
Yeah, or a different environment. Here's where this 30-pound tank underwater, and go on in here and tack these shipyard holes. Or, it's just like, yeah, it's always challenged.
Oh yeah, you're really good on the ground, hot shot. Go up there 120 foot in the air, do it.
Right.
Yeah, it's a great trade to get into. I mean, for anybody, I recommend it to a lot of people. And we have, kind of, Martha, going back to what you were saying, like with Paige the plumber, I've actually had a lot of females in our class, and they seem to do a lot better than a lot of the guys, because they have that hand-eye coordination, that dexterity, finer motor skills, the ability to follow directions. That's a big one. But yeah, they seem to make a lot better welders. We have one company that every time we have females come out of the class, like they're the first ones there. And so the females there, they've created like their own little network inside of this company, because there's a lot of different struggles that, they have to deal with that, a lot of the guys don't have to coming in, because, oh yeah, you're just another welder coming in if you're a guy. However, if you're a female, are you sure you're here to weld and not to like clean up the shop? I mean, they get a lot of that mentality. There's stereotypes with that too, but they end up, showing everybody what they can do, and they do awesome stuff. They ended up getting promoted to supervisor like really quick.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, and honestly, like that's a little bit of why we chose to feature some women in the Skilled docuseries, and even our previous one, Not the Science Type, was about that too. Like really shattering those stereotypes of like, I think this is what a scientist looks like, or I think this is what a welder looks like. Like we want to paint a different picture for people so that they can see themselves. We want young girls and young people to be able to see themselves in these models and these role models of what people are doing out there. So
yeah, my welding instructor in school was actually a woman. So
really,
yeah.
Cool.
That's cool. There's not a whole lot of them out there.
That's very cool.
Yeah, I know a couple of the female welding instructors, and they do great. Within our industry, like I've got a lot of, really good close friends that they're females and they're welding instructors, and they do awesome things in their class. Their kids compete in skills, or they win local welding competitions, and it's always funny to sit back and watch and be like, they're going to take it this year because maybe they put in a little bit more effort. Maybe I don't know what it is, but they've got a lot more drive and determination. Sometimes they've got because I think they have to prove themselves. They shouldn't have to, but they do. They get in there, and once again, stereotypes, and people are like, "Oh, it's a female." What are they going to be able to do? Sit back and watch, and then they surprise them.
Yeah, it's so true. Like when we did the Not the Science type documentary, which is a lot about STEM, and skilled trades fall into STEM. The research there, the study findings were 87% of people agree that we need to do more to keep women and girls encouraged and engaged to look at these careers as viable for them. Like, so everyone agrees, like, you got to be really intentional about, encouraging women in this field. And then when you are a woman in that field, you got to be really intentional about knocking it out of the park to break those stereotypes, exactly as you said.
Yeah.
So right or wrong, right? That's the game right now.
Yeah.
So
I just wish there were more companies kind of like pushing that or exposing, saying, hey, these different skilled trades, they're for everybody, but there's not a lot of companies that want to put it in their marketing budget to promote skilled trades in general versus like, here's our new product that we have coming out, go buy that, like put some money back into education, put some money into the schools, create a documentary or a short film to bring awareness to these different trades, highlight some people that are doing awesome things that these are the people you typically don't see in the industry, but here they are killing it, and kind of highlight that stuff. Cause like the skilled series, that would be like a great promo video for, guidance counselors to show a group of students.
They absolutely should be showing it. And we actually have a partnership with Teach for America. And we're going to be showing that film across classrooms all across the U.S. coming here in the next year or two, right? For exactly that purpose, Jason, as we want the guidance counselors to be promoting that and making it really, really relatable, frankly, to kids that are considering pathways. And, as much as, I'll give 3M a little promotion here for that, like your point about companies promoting it. 3M has made a commitment that we want to create 5 million unique skilled trade and STEM learning experiences between now and the end of 2025. So that's only 2 years away. We want to
get your work cut out for you.
5 million engagements to say, we want to build awareness. We want people to think about this. And honestly, like it's not just because skilled trades is so important to us as a manufacturer and to our customers, but we believe this is the right thing to do for industry and the right thing to do for students, right? Who are, on that path or that crossroads of trying to decide what to do with their life. We want them to know about this and we want to encourage them. And honestly, it's a win-win, right? It's a win-win for them. It's a win-win for industry. It's a win-win for our economy, all across the board. And back to Cedric's point, right? Having productive and happy citizens out there, this is a really key way of doing that. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, especially with our failing infrastructure here in the United States. I mean, you look at the bridges that are like way past due to be replaced, the railroad lines, that need to be repaired and fixed and maintained and stuff like that. Buildings, like all this stuff that it's kind of been put on the back burner. We need people to come in and repair that stuff. And there's going to be a high price tag attached to your hourly wage for you to go in there and do that because they simply can't find enough people.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And part of our shorts like that we take into classrooms and talk about skilled trades, welding is a key one, of course, but we also talk about being an electrician. We talk about being an automation technician. We talk about clean energy, like how clean energy, solar, wind power, all these other things. Like there's all these sort of emerging spaces where we know we have these shortages in skilled trades and we want people to be sort of stepping out and knowing like they're going to have their pick of companies and, jobs, because like you said earlier, like people are screaming to try and find these workers. So, how nice would it be to come out of a program that, again, is maybe a few months or a year long opposed to 4 years long, and walk right into your pick of job. Like, oh my gosh, I would have loved that coming out of school. That would have been amazing. Yeah.
And you brought up energy. I mean, that's another big thing. I just had some folks on the podcast. We talked about running a hydrogen pipeline, because apparently that's going to be one of the next big renewable resources that we have at our disposal that doesn't, increase the carbon footprint. So now they're trying to figure out, can we use our current infrastructure, or do we have to build all new? And I'm leaning towards the way of, we're going to have to build all new infrastructure just because of the inherent risks with hydrogen. So how many welders are you going to need for that? And where are you going to get them? And how are you going to skill them up that quick? Because you're going to need specialty welders at that point. You're not going to be able to bring a lot of the kids right out of high school unless you have some of these people that are capable of doing it, that are working with these different trade schools, showing them exactly what needs to be done and doing like task-specific training. I mean, look at the Alaskan pipeline. That thing lasted like 30 years. So start training students now, figure out how we're going to do it. Start training them now so that you've got a constant flow of people to come in there and be able to perform that work. Same thing with the bridges, railroads, all that stuff. Everything that we're going to be using, we need to get people in there to be able to fix it, maintain it, install new, all that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, Martha, where can people find the documentary?
Yeah. So right now you can find it on YouTube. So both the complete film and the individual profiles. So if you just wanted to go in and watch the welding segment, or you wanted to go in and watch the fall protection segment, so YouTube is the place to go. But it will be coming available a little bit later. I think May 3rd is our target date, where it's going to be available for streaming on Apple TV, Google Play, Kanopy, Prime Video, the Roku Channel. So it'll be a little more mainstream early May. But like I said, if you want to get a sneak peek, you can go on YouTube now. And, we were really proud because the film debuted at Sundance earlier this year. And that was a big deal. Like, we showed up there and people are like, why is 3M at Sundance? That doesn't make any sense, right? So we were really proud of what we were promoting. And it was a little different because we weren't up there talking about product, what we sell. We were talking about this industry and how important it is. And, Cedric was there, and our other stars from the film were there with us. And it was a really special event. We were really proud.
That's really cool. I think that's one of the coolest things that Netflix did a while back, is they came out with that show Metal Shop Masters.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was an artistic spin, but look at how many people that, Monster Garage and Orange County Choppers and American Choppers, same TV show, but like, look at how many people they inspired to get into welding or fabrication. Same thing with Forged in Fire. Look how many people have, little blacksmith setups. I got one right outside my studio, not because of that show, but it's something I've always wanted to do. But, if we start making this a little bit more mainstream, like as you're doing the death scroll, trying to find something on Netflix, and have like a welding show up there, or a fabrication show, or, same thing with like Project MFG, where they get a bunch of welders and CNC people together and they go in there and have to build something. And it's almost like reality TV or a competition. But, a lot of people are sitting at home saying, like, I want to get into that. I want to do that. Yeah. Or a young boy or girl sitting there saying, that's what I want to do when I grow up. I mean, that's absolutely. You've got to start it at a younger age now, because we're not hitting that mark at, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. You got to start at 10, 11, 12.
You know what? You're so right, Jason. And we did some of our research when we got into this space and skilled trades. We learned that kids form what's called an occupation identity, meaning like, here's what I think I can be when I grow up. They form that as early as 8 to 10. Like, I was shocked. 8 to 10 years old. Like, what were you doing at 8 to 10, right? Like, I wasn't thinking about what I could be, but that's what they were saying. Like, you got to hit kids when they're really young, before they even get into high school sometimes, because they're going to start picking streams in high school, or they're going to start, making decisions on which pathway they want to go. And, one of my colleagues, I'll use their phrase, which I love. You got to see it to be it. You got to see it. Like, if you don't see it, you're not even aware of what's possible. And so, like you said, getting this stuff out there onto, mainstream television and streaming. And, that's again, why the docuseries was so important to us. Like, we want people to see this. We want people to realize this is possible, and to break those stereotypes, and to really inspire and encourage kids to look at this as a viable path.
Yeah, and a lot of people you want to target are visual learners. So what better way to target them as to show them a video?
Oh yeah,
they got to be able to see it, because they're not going to find it in an ad in a magazine or anything like that. You got to show them a video.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie. When I saw Paige's segment on the plumbing, I was like, damn, I could do plumbing. Like, why didn't I think of that? Like, she is so inspiring, right? So you're right. Like, to see that and to see somebody's passion around it is really, I think, what can get people hooked.
That's the biggest thing, is the passion.
Yeah, for sure.
No, that's really cool.
Sure.
Well, I want to thank both of y'all for taking the time out of your schedules to, link up and come out here and kind of, let the audience know about the need for skilled workers and what 3M's doing. And, Cedric, your journey through the whole deal and, getting into welding. I think it's awesome. But, thank you both for coming out on the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Jason. And it's so, I really, every time I get a chance to work with Cedric, I love it. And getting to meet you and hear a little bit more about your audience and what you guys are doing is awesome. So I love that you're bringing this to your listeners also.
Oh, how could I not? I was like, 3M's reaching out to me. I definitely want to talk to them. I still want to have, go ahead, Cedric.
Just as you being a welder, man, thank you for advocating for our trade, man, and being someone who demonstrates, where we can take this, not only in the workforce, but having a podcast that advocates as well, man. You're leading the way for us.
I'm going to keep shouting it from the rooftops, man. I love everything about it. And I want to chat with Andrea too. At one point, I spoke with Mary about getting Andrea on the podcast, because fall protection is a big issue in our industry. Like, I've got a background in structural steel ironwork, and there's a lot of times I wore a harness just for the simple fact that I had to have it on. It may or may not have been connected, but it looked good from the road.
Listen, that's again another really strong area for 3M is our fall protection portfolio, and you will love Andrea. Like, she brings that to life and talks about why it's so important and all the training that she does. You would love Andrea.
Yeah, I can't wait to chat with her. She seems like a cool person.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is all I have for you this week. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Martha and Cedric and I. Be sure to check out the Skilled documentary from 3M by going to www.3m.com/skilled. I'll also leave a link in the show notes. Be sure to tune in next week for an all-new episode featuring the one and only Dabs Wellington. Hope you all have a great rest of your week. Stay safe out there, and until next time, make every weld better than your last.